Hello, and in this lesson, we are going to talk about understanding your parenting style. Now, why is this important to talk about? And what is our parenting style? So, first, our parenting style is the natural way that we parent. It is actually a product of our personality, so our natural temperament, and then our upbringing. So, if there's parenting that we had modeled for us, or if there's fears that we have that come out in our parenting, if we've had past traumatic experiences, or we've seen things that we feel like are effective or ineffective in parenting, we bring all of that with us, combined with our personality and our natural firmness or softness as a parent, and that creates our parenting personality. Now, research went out and studied different parenting personalities to try to figure out what people naturally were parenting with and which of those parenting styles was most healthy. And after many years of research, what they found is that there's 4 main parenting styles that a parent may fall into, and only one of those is effective long term. Now, I know that you want to be the most effective parent in your home. There's no reason that you would sign up for this course and make the commitment of your finances and your time if you weren't wanting to be the best parent possible. So that's why we need to explore this so that you can see what it takes to be the healthiest kind of parent and get the best long-term results. So understanding our parenting style also helps us identify our natural strengths that we have. So each different parenting style has some natural strengths to it. Even if it's not the healthiest parenting style, there's some other styles and they have some natural strengths. But the other styles also have some natural weaknesses that you will need to overcome in order for you to have a peaceful home now and for your kids to become the healthiest, most productive versions of themselves. Now, the purpose of this is for instruction. It's not for shaming yourself. It's not for labeling yourself. It's also not for shaming and labeling your partner. And this is not to be used as an excuse in the future. Oh, well, I parent this way because I just am naturally this parent. No, this is instead supposed to be for awareness. Now, the first parenting style we're just briefly going to touch on because this is not any of you. The first style is neglectful parenting, and this means that the child is neglected regularly for an extended period of time. These are the kids who are fending for themselves, who don't know where their parents are or when they're coming home, who end up in the foster program or parents having their rights terminated. So this is really extreme. This is not you're working on a project from work and not giving all of your attention to your child for a short period of time. And so now you're a neglectful parent. That's not the situation at all. This is for those extended periods of time and where the child's basic needs are not being met. So we're going to dive into the other 3 parenting styles. Since neglectful isn't you, and we just touched on that, we're going to talk about the other 3, and we're going to use an analogy to kind of help us understand this a little bit better. And we're going to use this analogy of the journey of life. So each of us is born and we have a journey while we exist. And we get to decide where we want to go in our journey. What is the big destination for you? So when I was little, my dad was asking me what I wanted to be when I grew up when I was like 5, and started to get my mind thinking about what my goals might be and what my future destination might be. And he asked me to explore whether a family was in my future or not, what kind of career, what kind of woman I wanted to be, all of these different things. And so each of us is like an individual with our own individual roadmap, with our own individual destination, and we are in our own individual cars. And we are trying to map our way through life, hopefully with a specific destination in mind. If you don't have a specific destination, it might be time to revisit that. but we all get to go through this journey of life. And each of us are in our separate vehicles with our separate lives. Even though our lives intersect with other people, we genuinely are in our own vehicles where we get to control the choices that we make and the destination that we want to make it to, the pit stops we want to make along the way. So let's talk about the firm side of parenting. So the firm side of parenting, if you want to do Google search on and read a lot more about this, is called authoritarian. Sorry, two of the styles are really close. But for the sake of simplicity, we're calling it a firm side of parenting. And you'll notice here that we have two circles that overlap. So the firm side of parenting has kind of a spectrum that you can be super, super firm, like way far on the left, super firm, or you could be kind of more towards the middle ground, which is where we're going to be working towards. So I'm going to share some characteristics of a firm parent, and I want you to see if you identify with any of these. Strict rules, sharper tone, like you need to do this right now, little missy. Harder time having compassion and empathy for the child, for their human experience. Mistakes are frowned upon, or there's a really low tolerance for it, and maybe you have a low tolerance for your own mistakes. We discipline the child by taking away privileges with very little or no explanation. Use physical punishment, such as spanking, as a way of disciplining. Scold and criticize to make the child improve. We feel like we can guilt them into better behavior or lecture them into better behavior. Using a lot of threats. So if you don't get your act together, there won't be any screen time the rest of the day. If you don't stop fighting your brother, you'll both be in your room. So lots of threats. Yell or shout when a child misbehaves. Explode in anger. Try to make child be what I think as the parent they should be. You should have these friends, go to these schools, be interested in these careers, be involved in these sports, love music or love art, or don't love those things. Like, do what the family does and just fall in line. Please do not be too unique. Can punish by withholding affection. So if the child is misbehaving, we cut out our positive interactions with them in an effort to try to get their behavior to improve. The child's feelings or thoughts are not super welcomed or encouraged, that I'm the parent and I'm the authority figure and it's my thoughts that matter and it's my way or the highway. Now, obviously, this is all the extreme. There's some examples of this that aren't quite as extreme. Have a hard time giving choices to our child and allowing them to make their own decisions. That was me big time. And have a hard time praising positive behavior because you're just seeing where your child is misstepping and their flaws and imperfections. So that is the firm style of parenting. Now, the future, the long-term results. So when they did this research, they examined the different types of parenting styles and then watched kids for 50 years to see how their behavior was affected by the parenting style. And here is what they saw with the firm parenting style. And we're using our driving analogy, right? So in this example on the left, the child doesn't like how firm the parent is being, how controlling the parent is trying to be. So instead of trying to focus on where they want to get in life and how they want to get there and what destinations matter to them and focusing on the road, good decisions, they instead just make wild decisions in an effort to show the parent, you can't control me. You're very controlling. I can feel it. I hate feeling like your hands are on the steering wheel of my life. And so I'm not even going to focus on good decisions. I'm just going to focus on doing whatever crazy thing I have to do to prove to you, you will not be in charge of me. So if you feel like you're a parent that may be struggling with being overly firm or overly controlling and you're seeing this outcome, it's good to start to evaluate, where can I start to take my hands off of the steering wheel of their life? Now, the next thing that we see is this middle picture of the individual asleep at the steering wheel of life. This is not usually defiant kids. Defiant kids will usually fight for control, but in the event that you're parenting a child who's more compliant, what can happen is that the child realizes that they don't have a voice in their life, that they don't get to make decisions for themselves, that the destination is going to be chosen by the parent and how they get there will be chosen by the parent, and that they aren't actually driving the car, the parent's driving the car. The child actually falls asleep at the steering wheel of life. And this could look like being overly compliant, losing all sense of self, not being assertive or speaking up for themselves, not having goals or destinations in their own mind, but just waiting for the parent to tell them everything to do. And in the end, this child can struggle to find their own voice and to stand up for themselves. And they will oftentimes find a partner in life that will continue to control them because they're used to that. So next is this man jumping out of the car. What can happen in some situations if a child feels like they are being overly controlled by the parent, or the parent is being overly firm, the child can just jump out of the car of life. Whether that's jumping out of the family and just disengaging in relationship and saying, forget you, I'm not seen in this family. I am not heard. It doesn't matter what I think or feel. I'm out of here. And they will try to find groups that will support them, since they're not finding that support at home. So other long-term results, we can see temporary good behavior. And this is the thing that's tricky about this parenting style, is that we do see some things happen that reinforces using this parenting style. But the child is behaving just to avoid pain or avoid the loss of your approval. And that is not a good motivator for good behavior. We want good behavior to be because the child longs for the good outcomes of their choices for their own life. They can become aggressive and controlling or overly submissive. So they kind of sit on either side. They really struggle with their self-esteem. If I am not loved and seen and embraced by my parent for who I am as an individual, then who can love me? If my parent can't, then who can love me? And people who don't have their own voice and assertiveness and independence, they struggle with self-esteem as well. These kids can rebel against authority figures on one side, or they just won't stand up for themselves on the other. So both outcomes that we're not looking for. They also can rarely learn to think on their own. They have had a parent to make all the decisions for them, do all the problem solving for them, tell them exactly what to do every minute of every day. And so they lack the critical thinking skills to be able to work that out on their own. And they can see the critical thinking skills being missing when it comes to academic performance, job performance, and then just in their own life. Another thing that can happen is that this child can go wild once free from parent. As soon as the parent is gone and the child is at school, or as soon as the child moves out. And it's just like this freedom that they finally have because they were behaving just to avoid the pain that they would have in your relationship. And so now when you're out of the way, they just go wild. With these kids, there's a way higher risk of anxiety and depression as well. So I know that this is not the long-term results that you're looking for. So did you find some of yourself in the firmer parenting style? So for me, I found it in wanting to control a lot of my kids' decisions, that I wanted to control who they hung out with, their academic performance, what programs they got into in school, what extracurricular activities they would be interested in, what time they went to sleep, what they would wear, just all of these things that I thought was good parenting, having a lot of control over things like that, and just found increased defiance because my kids were trying to show me that they were in charge of themselves. I also see a lot of this firmness in my partner, who is just a little bit more strict. His dad came in and barked, and when he barked, everybody just did what they were supposed to do. And so his parenting philosophy was definitely, as the authority figure, I should be able to give a command and everyone should fall in line and just follow. And with some kids, it works, but with defiant kids, it rarely works. And like I'm showing you here, the long-term results aren't great. Now, we can have kids who are honoring boundaries and making good decisions and still have boundaries in our home. So I'm not saying, to all those who are more firm, I'm not saying relinquish all rules. That would be incredibly unhealthy. So I will tell you more about the healthy parenting style that we're working towards in a couple of videos. Next, we're going to talk about soft parent tendencies and what the softer parent looks like.